Today I'm going to show you the project for third grade rhythm and movement. So the students are going to learn about two principles of art. They're going to first learn about movement, and movement is when an artist gives the impression of movement. So obviously a painting isn't actually moving, but based on the techniques the artist used, the viewer sees that there's movement. And then the other principle that you're going to discuss is rhythm, and that's when something an artist creates through the repetition of art elements. So by like repeating lines, repeating certain shapes, repeating certain colors, that often also gives the impression of movement or action. So those are the two principles that they're going to have discussed. And so their first thing that they're going to do, this is what their finished product is going to look like. They're going to be making prints. So here they're going to practice. In each of these squares, they're going to practice making some designs that they think give the impression of movement and rhythm. So you can remind them it's things like repeating shapes. Those are things that give the impression of rhythm. So just simple things like this. So just repeating shapes over and over, and they'll have looked at the art already. So they'll have seen Pete Mondrian's Broadway Boogie Woogie, and that really shows them how the rhythm is created with repeated shapes. So just things like that. So this is just their practice sheet. So they'll get to practice making designs that they think give the impression of movement or rhythm. And there's no wrong answer to this. It's whatever they think. And so I would just have them create a few different designs. They don't need to fill in all 6, but this just gives them the opportunity to practice, because when they start working with the scratch foam, they can't undo, you can't erase on the scratch foam. So they kind of need to have thought of some ideas already. And they can create more rhythm when they add color to their patterns. So when they're drawing, they're just going to be working with line and shape, and then once they can add color, it'll give them more opportunity to see rhythm in their art. Okay, so I would really set like a time limit for the students to work on this part. Maybe give them 5 minutes, something like that. You don't want them to overthink this. This is just a chance for them to just sketch out some designs. You don't want this to take 20 minutes, because some of them will want to spend 20 minutes on it. So again, just simple designs that that they think of for rhythm and movement. One thing that I wanted to make sure that you tell the students before they get started on the practice sheet is you do want to make sure they understand they cannot write words. First of all, that's just not the purpose with this project. But secondly, the words will be in a mirror image, so they won't say the right thing. And then they're going to choose which one of the designs they did that they like best. And they're going to get a 2" by 2" piece of scratch foam. So it is the same size as their practice sheet. That just helps them transfer it over. And they're going to put the same design onto the scratch foam. So these are just sheets of scratch foam that I cut into squares. You can get the meat trays from the grocery store. Those work too. Just any type of this foam that when you write on it, it kind of compresses the part you write on. So I'm just going to transfer one of my designs onto this. So I'm just going to do this one right here. So they're just going to use the toothpick, and they're going to draw that same design with the toothpick. And you can use a toothpick or a skewer, and you know what, you can even use a pencil. It really doesn't matter. and just remind them it doesn't have to be exactly the same pattern as what they did on their paper. Just choose the one that is their favorite and then do that. So they're going to just copy that pattern. Okay, so I have put that pattern onto the scratch foam. I just did a really simple one. And now you're going to use this as your printing block. And I would cut a piece of cardstock in half, and one of them is going to be their finished product, and one is going to be where they're going to kind of experiment, because they're going to want to experiment with a little bit to see how it works. So all you're going to need is markers, and they are just going to color the foam with markers. So, and I'm going to do it on top of my practice piece, and they're just going to fill that in. So they can use lots of different colors and fill in their pattern on the foam. So I have completely colored the scratch foam, and they're going to want to be careful not to touch the top with their fingers. They want to handle it by the edges because the ink will come off. And so I would have them, at least for their first one, practice. And what they need to do is the paper has to be a little bit wet. So I just am using a paintbrush and I'm getting most of the water off. And then I am just painting a square about the size of the foam. And then they're just going to take the foam and put it where you've painted the paper, and they're gonna transfer it. And they can rub it to get it to transfer well, and then pull it up. And you can see how it has transferred onto the paper, and most of the ink has come off. So you can, they can then wipe the rest of the ink off so that they are ready to do a clean transfer. So you can use the paintbrush and water, and you get a transfer that's like this. It's a little bit more blurry. If you want a more crisp one, then you could actually just use a wet paper towel and get the paper just barely wet. So this is just a folded paper towel that I squoze out, and that will work too. So you can give them both or decide which one, and they can kind of experiment. So, and then they're just going to do this, and they want to repeat their pattern however they want onto this paper. They can do it like this one where I just did lines. They can shift the direction, whatever they want to do, and they can just keep in mind still that they're doing rhythm and movement. So whatever they think will best get them that result. So I'm going to color another one, and I'll show you the difference if you instead use the paper towel. Okay, so I've colored my foam again, and you can see I did it different colors. They don't have to continue doing the same color. And then I'm just going to use the paper towel and just get the paper barely wet. And then I'm going to put the foam down. And they want to really rub the whole thing, so really help transfer that color. And so that's how it transfers. So as you can see, the paper towel and the paintbrush, they give a little bit of a different look. So whichever you'd prefer to do. And then again, just wipe it off. I would actually give them separate paper towels, one to clean and one to transfer if they're going to use the paper towel. And then just keep going. Okay, so you can see why I gave them just half a sheet of paper. It it is a little bit time consuming, so you don't want to give them a full sheet of paper. They just won't have the time to fill it up. So they can fill this up as much as they want. So they could go, off the edges of the paper, they can stay within the paper, it doesn't matter. I like to just, when they finish, and then when they're done, you can cut it so that it has a nice, like, even border like this one. So this one I would cut like this, and then that would be done. So, and again, you can just, now that they're dry, you can see the difference in using the paintbrush. It's, either way is fine. So one thing I would just make sure you tell them is, once they've placed it, they can't undo it. So, and they need to hold it really firm while they're rubbing the ink onto the paper. And that's about it. So again, that is the 3rd grade rhythm and movement project.